Marcus walked into the interview prepared. He researched the company, practiced his answers, even picked the right tie. Blue, because someone once told him, blue makes people seem trustworthy without trying too hard. The first 20 minutes went well. The interviewer smiled, nodded, said things like, "You're exactly what we're looking for." And Marcus finally relaxed a little. Then she leaned back in her chair and asked, "What's a time you failed someone who trusted you?" And suddenly, everything in him tightened, because he wasn't prepared for that question. Most people aren't. But what Marcus didn't realize was that the question wasn't random. It was a test, and it was designed for someone exactly like him. There are thousands of videos about toxic people. The red flags, the warning signs, the manipulative things they say. But almost nobody asks the more uncomfortable question. Not, how do I spot toxic people, but why do they seem to spot me? Because manipulative people usually don't move through life targeting everyone equally. They scan, they observe, they test. And the people they're most drawn to often share very specific traits: empathy, patience, emotional openness, the tendency to see the good in people. Which means the very qualities that make you a good person can also make you easier to emotionally manipulate if you don't protect them. And that's the part many people never realize until much later. Most people assume toxic individuals look for weakness, someone insecure, broken, easy to control. But that's not always true. A lot of manipulative people are actually drawn to emotionally generous people. The listeners, the helpers, the ones who give people the benefit of the doubt. Because emotionally available people give something manipulators desperately want: attention, patience, forgiveness, emotional energy. In other words, they're not always looking for someone weak. They're looking for someone who keeps giving. And kind people often do exactly that, especially when they believe someone is hurting. That's why so many emotionally intelligent people end up trapped in unhealthy relationships. Not because they're naive, but because their empathy keeps overriding their instincts. A lot of toxic dynamics begin the same way, not with obvious manipulation, with emotional closeness. Someone opens up to you, shares their pain, tells you how badly they've been hurt before. And naturally, your empathy responds. Because healthy people care when someone is suffering. That's normal. But manipulative people often learn something very important early in life. The fastest way into someone's emotional world is vulnerability, or at least the appearance of vulnerability. So they create emotional intensity very quickly. Deep conversations, fast attachment, trauma sharing, constant connection. And before you even realize what's happening, you start emotionally investing harder than they are. That imbalance is important, because once someone knows you're emotionally attached, they start learning what you'll tolerate in order to keep the connection. And that's usually where the real manipulation begins. Most manipulative relationships don't begin with obvious abuse. They begin with small tests, tiny moments that seem harmless at first. A boundary gets pushed. A disrespectful comment gets disguised as a joke. A last-minute favor appears. They cancel on you, disappear briefly, do something slightly inconsiderate. And then they watch your response carefully. Because what they're really asking is, how much discomfort will this person tolerate to keep me around? And kind people often fail these tests without realizing it. Not because they're weak, but because they try to be understanding. They rationalize the behavior, excuse it, minimize it. And once someone learns you'll abandon your discomfort to preserve connection, they usually push further next time. That's how emotional manipulation escalates. Quietly, gradually, almost invisibly. One of the most confusing parts of toxic relationships is how emotionally addictive they can become, even when they're hurting you. And a lot of that comes down to inconsistency. At first, the affection feels intense. Attention, validation, connection. Your brain starts associating that person with emotional relief. But then something changes. The warmth becomes unpredictable. One day, they're loving. The next day, distant. Then suddenly affectionate again. And strangely, that inconsistency often strengthens attachment instead of weakening it, because the brain becomes focused on getting the connection back. You stop feeling emotionally safe and start feeling emotionally dependent. That's why so many people stay in unhealthy dynamics longer than they expected. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because their nervous system became attached to the cycle. Ironically, people who are healing emotionally can still attract manipulative people, sometimes even more than before. Because healing doesn't instantly remove old patterns, it just makes you more aware of them. A person may learn to stop tolerating obvious disrespect, but still struggle with guilt, still over-explain, still over-empathize, still feel responsible for other people's emotions. And manipulative people notice those things quickly. But eventually, something important starts changing. You stop trying to prove your goodness to people who continuously drain it. You stop confusing empathy with access. And you begin understanding something most emotionally healthy people learn the hard way. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. The goal is not to become cold, or suspicious of everyone, or emotionally closed off. The goal is simply this: to stop giving your emotional energy freely to people who repeatedly misuse it. Your empathy is valuable. Your patience is valuable. Your emotional openness is valuable. Those are strengths, but strengths still need protection. The answer was never to dim your light. It was to stop handing unrestricted access to people who only know how to take from it. You are not too kind. You just need better boundaries. Trust yourself.